We're going to try to do this, and I cannot promise you that everything is going to go correctly because there's a huge amount of information to curate. So why don't we do this? I will tell my guys in the back. I just sent you another title slide because I think I had the wrong one before. But anyway, that's for the thumbnail on the video. So let's do this. Let's open in a word of prayer. Lord, I pray that you will just bless our time together today, Lord, as we discuss some pretty heavy topics as we live in a world that is clearly a world in transition. We just pray that you will help us to be rooted in Scripture so that we can understand the speed and convergence of events around us that seem, by all indications, to point to your soon return. Bless us this week. In Jesus' name, amen. So let me get to my slides. And I'm going to tell you right up front, I know I say this a lot of weeks, that things happen so quickly, it's hard to get things organized. And this week may be the worst one ever. And I'm not sure hang on a second here. I know why I did it. Show. Okay, there we go. So, world in transition. And we're going to talk about some of these subjects today in no particular order. Of course, we have the Board of Peace with Trump. By the way, that's the Board of Peace document that he's holding up there. And I will confess, on Jared and Trump, I actually used AI to generate those images a little bit, so I will confess that. But it's interesting. So I wanted Trump, and I wanted him with this document. So I had him holding the document, was bronze bust. And somebody said, well, Trump should be in gold. So then I was able to figure out, I just told AI, make him gold. And it made him gold. And then I said, I wanted Jared in bronze because skinny, he's tall, thin, and bronze is a medal of judgment. And I think he's treading on some very thin ice there. So, and then I kind of work with a couple different tools to get the AI, or to get the chess piece for Iran there that's kind of cracked and broken. So, a lot of things going on. So we'll talk about those subjects this week again. We'll talk about Board of Peace a little bit, Israel, Iran. That seems to be going on. Who plays into who? And then I have a couple things that I want to talk about, and I'm not sure where I'm going to slot this in. I want to talk, I think, about Middle East and Iran first. Then I'll talk about some cultural news. Then I'll talk about AI, and then I'll close, I think, with something about what's going on in the church and a lot of revelations that came out this week about Bethel Church out of Redding, California, and some of the things that are going on there that are horrific. And by the way, I went back and looked at I've been talking about this for 20 years. So I'm not denigrating anybody Mike Winger came out with a very good, detailed video on Bethel this week. It's at 5 or 6 hours long. So you think I'm long? Okay. Like Calvary Chapel guy going 5 or 6 hours on this video, and it's pretty good. And Bethel's responded. So I think I'll end with that. I'll kind of go back. I dug back in the archives to pick up a couple things. But this is a crazy week. So I did the sermon first hour, mainly on Luke chapter 4, Jesus being rejected at Nazareth. You might want to take a look at that. You can find it under the live or regular tab. Again, I hate to do this, but like, share, subscribe, and that type of thing. We seem to be stuck at a certain number of subscribers, and I'm not sure why that is. I think I'm getting throttled by the various people around. I do have a prophecy roundtable coming up on February 11th. You can go to the church website, fbchapel.com. I think you might be able to also go to our YouTube channel and send questions. I mean, Britt Gillette and Scott Townsend, they also will be curating some questions. So we're going to try to focus on questions that you have about AI and prophecy and that type of thing. Although I wrote to the guys last night and they said, I think if we're doing a Q&A, we need to do a substantive one, and you'll see why as I get into that part of the update today. But this is a very, rough time. Usually stuff doesn't bother me. This week, I will confess, it bothered me it's sort of like the old saying, it bothered me, it is bothering me, and it will bother me. And there's some particularly in the AI area, there's some disturbing things that have happened. So I'll talk about what's going on with the Israel-Iran. And again, this is going to be jumping around a bit. So, maybe somebody can edit it and put it into order later, but I don't have time to do that to keep up. This is very difficult. I mean, you have no idea. In the show notes, there's a lot of links, X posts and that type of thing. And I think they're important. And there's a lot of things in there that I'm not going to get to. So remember, we live at a time where there's things that we need to be looking for in the way they're happening. Acceleration, things are going to be happening more and more quickly. Now, let me just ask you, does it seem like things are sort of unwinding or winding up or whatever more quickly than they were 3 weeks ago? I mean, who's ready to take back 2026 and exchange it for a different year? And then there's a convergence. All of these different things we talk about in Bible prophecy are all happening at the same time. And I don't know, did I say February 11th for the Prophecy Roundtable, 7 p.m. Eastern? And I have some interviews I'm trying to schedule with people in Israel and that type of thing. So pray that goes well. It's a bit daunting. So let's talk about Iran and Israel. And this could be very short, could be very long. And I haven't checked my phone, so I don't know if something's happened since I came up here to talk or since I preached first hour. There are a lot of things going on with regard to Israel, Iran, United States. First of all, we have watched unfold over the last several weeks a slaughter in Iran by the Iranian regime. This is on a scale that is epic. And so I thought what I would do today is to share with you the protests at Columbia, Harvard, Yale, and other universities about what happened in Iran. And here is a picture of this. Yeah, nothing. Crickets. I-24 News had on a guy from France the other day. You can go to the I-24 News YouTube channel, click on I-24 French, and you can get it should give you closed captions in English. There was an analyst who was talking the other day, interviewed, and he said, so there's a lot of different numbers floating around. Ignorant people say it's only 2,000, it's only 3,000. Other people say 16. Other people say there's some pretty good evidence that it's 36,000 people killed by the Iranian regime. The pictures coming out of Iran that are able to get through the digital gulag that the mullahs have put in place to keep people from communicating with the outside world about the atrocities going on there. The pictures of rows upon rows, semi-trailers filled with body bags of people. There's some reports that people were put into body bags while they were still living. There are pictures taken of bodies where they were shot. They were shot, but they have an IV in, or they have a CPR oxygen mask on. Now, what does that mean? How do you analyze that? And one of the ways to analyze that is to figure out what happened. They were going into hospitals and shooting people and killing them. They're executing people And I know that our government is saying, well, we got that stopped. I don't believe it for a second. It's wishful thinking at this point. The guy on I-24, the French guy, said that the number is probably just under 85,000. So Israel's being hammered because 70,000 may have died in Gaza in a war. Talk a little bit about that Hamas wanted to die. When Hamas invaded Israel and they built the tunnels under hospitals, under schools, and never let the people go down there, my understanding is not a single child has gone into a tunnel in Gaza. Why? Because Hamas wants them to die. Get that through your thick head. This is the way they think, and they knew this was going to happen. In fact, here's Nick Freitas, who does pretty good work. I'll just go ahead and play his video right now. He's talking about what did Hamas want. Here we go.
Hamas went into the Israel that day knowing they can't beat the IDF. They went in that day knowing that the IDF would come after the hostages. They went in that day knowing that they were going to use their own civilians on top of legitimate military targets in an effort to increase civilian casualties, their civilian casualties. And yet, they knew that Western media and academia would back their play and make a false moral equivalency argument. The question that you got to start asking yourself, if you're serious about this, how did they know they could trust left-wing academia and media to back their play? How did they know? Because that's exactly what took place.
And that's right. And we don't know exactly what's going to happen with, so that's Gaza. Now we have the situation with Iran. And I have article after article, so I'm going to share a little bit with you. We'll go back, we'll cover some things, and we'll come back. This is the front page of Israel Hayom this morning, talking about what's going on in Gaza. Here's the inner part that talks about this. So I'll read through this article a little bit because I think it's got some good information. We've brought this huge armada to the Middle East. By all estimates, it's historically daunting. It's huge, or huge as the president would be prone to say. A lot of ships, a lot of aircraft, a lot of weapons. And what's going to happen? So here, I'll share a couple articles. This is, like I said, we could go for hours about this. Despite the negotiations, this is by Yoav Lamor. He's a security columnist, writer for the Israel Hayom. Despite the negotiations, so there's this big negotiation going on, because when Iran gets in trouble, what do they want to do? Well, we want to negotiate. And how do they negotiate? They never come to a resolution, and you can't believe a single word that they say. It's for delay. It's for propaganda purposes. Don't believe a word they say. It's their culture, particularly when you layer the doctrine of taqiyya. It's okay to lie in Islam on top of this. You cannot believe a word that these guys say. Let me back up just a second. So 84, let's just say 84,000 dead. Let's say it's 60, it's 50. I don't care. Let's say 84,000 people have been killed by the regime. Put in body bags. Do you know what they're doing now? Elika Laban, she's an Iranian-born lawyer, moved to England when she was young. She's a lawyer, and of course we always love that about people when they do that. She's very articulate, and she made a point. She says, you need to watch what the mullahs are going to do, because now they've stopped returning bodies to families. So they have stacks and stacks and stacks of body bags. What are they going to do with them? This is what they're going to do. They're going to wait until Israel or Iran, Israel or the United States, or both of them attack Iran, and then they're going to start dragging out the body bags. Look at all the people that Israel and the United States have killed, these poor Iranians. These people are monsters. And the only, I don't know how to say this, in my view, get rid of them. And if you think this is staying in Iran, Steve Bannon and Tucker Carlson, you're silly. You are not a serious person. Talk about that a little bit more. So so they're going to use this as propaganda. Be aware of that. This is what they do. Despite the negotiations, everything points to the U.S. being on the road to a broad campaign. The Iranians are issuing threats to the U.S. and Israel, and the U.S. is preparing plans for an attack, including with senior Israeli officials. Trump's dilemma, whether to attack if the negotiations do not meet the U.S. threshold conditions and focus solely on nuclear weapons. So in other words, there's some talk that the Trump administration would accept the deal, just give up nuclear weapons, stop your missile development, roll back your missile development, and then we're fine. Everything's peace, right? You cannot believe what they say. They buried their nuclear program underground for a reason, to hide it from everybody's eyes. They do the same thing with their missile program. They're rats in tunnels. You can't believe them. So it seems that the U.S. still leaves a certain opening for negotiations with Iran, but all signs indicate that the parties are now preparing for a broad campaign. This can be learned not only from the concentration of forces and intensive exercises and from the verbal escalation, but also from the tightening of coordination between the various parties, including Israel. IDF security people and Mossad people came and met with the U.S. people. I don't know if it was in Israel or here, it doesn't matter, because they're talking about it. And I will say this is a very, very difficult issue for President Trump and our people here in the United States. First of all, I think what's happening there is intricately related to us and what's going to happen here. If you don't think there are terror cells ready to be launched here in the United States, you are hopelessly naive. You can get an idea for that. When Trump, here's an example. So this shows how everything is connected. You got to see the inside of my brain. It looks like a big ball of spaghetti. So Trump says, I'm going to deport illegals. He has warrants for a lot of people who are convicted. He sends ICE out to do this. You can question whether they're doing it in the right way or not, but guess what? You don't get to make the call. In the Trump administration, they've deported about 1 million people. That's horrible. Clinton deported over 20 million people. Obama over 10 million, Biden over 10 million, Bush over 10 million. Stop with this nonsense. And so what do you see in Minneapolis? You see a highly, tightly controlled operation to interfere with law enforcement. And that never works out well. And so you can say law enforcement didn't act correctly. That's fine. Don't interfere with them. Go to the park and protest. They're not protesting in the park. They're tracking these agents. They're going to their hotels. They're banging pots and pans and noise, keeping them awake all night. Tired people don't make the best decisions sometimes. This is an operation. This is a war that's going on our streets. I don't know how else to say it. People in the New York Times say, I went to Minneapolis and I saw a civil war. Because that's what they want. This is a leftist, green, red-green alliance, whatever you want to call it. This is a design-funded operation. One guy asked somebody on the street, what organization are you with? And it's something like, sounds like Find My Phone, an app that you have. We have a $30 million budget. Where did they get the $30 million? Everybody complains about AIPAC. And is anybody like Tucker Carlson or Candace or anybody, are they asking any questions, a single question about where all this funding is coming from? James O'Keefe from O'Keefe Media Group. He goes out there, they're tracking him. They told him, if you don't leave, you're going to be killed. It's happening on the streets of Minneapolis. And it's happening in other cities too. Now, by the way, somebody said Seattle, they don't need all this intricate signal chats and, it's an app, signal app, chats and everything to organize protests. They'll just work through the mayor's office there. She's a lunatic. And full disclosure, I actually worked for a short time with the guy who ended up being the city attorney for, I don't know if he still is, for Seattle. He went out to Seattle to work with Bogle and Gates, huge law firm. Yeah, the Gates is the father of Bill Gates. His dad was a lawyer. So maybe it's better we didn't have kids, Pam, because we didn't want one to turn out like Bill Gates did. Filthy rich and totally amoral. So anyway, back to this thing here. So Israeli-American coordination is essential in both defense and attack. In the Iran war last June, the Americans helped Israel defend itself with the THAAD and Aegis missile batteries, defense batteries, and also assisted the Air Force attack. Now it seems that the Americans intend to lead the attack themselves, at least in its initial stages, but Israel may join it if it attacks, both to neutralize the threats to it, primarily the ballistic missiles, also to assist in the main effort, which according to publications in Washington, may be the Iranian regime itself. So Trump's trying to negotiate, Iran's not negotiating, they're not doing anything in good faith. And the concern is, and I've talked to a lot of people in Israel over the past week, they're concerned. Are we going to the bomb shelters today? They're stocking their bomb shelters because Iran is saying if Iran regime thinks it's going down, they're going to turn everything loose. Because the mentality of the regime is they think if they bring about the apocalypse, the Mahdi will come. They have an eschatology. So most of us who have futurist eschatologies, we believe these things, some of these things are going to happen. Not sure exactly. We argue all the time about the order and sequence and that type of thing. And I'm taking more of a view as when it happens, I'll tell you about it. But I kind of think this is when it's going to happen, but maybe that's not right. Okay, we need to be a little bit humble about our assertions because we may see things that we just never expected to see. I've often joked, I think I did this at a conference, I said, I joke among my colleagues up here, every time somebody says, boy, I never thought I'd see that happen while I was still here. They need to, throw $100 in my tip jar and I can really retire, because they would be doing it all the time because we all say it all the time. It's the way it is. It's the way of the world right now. But what's going to happen here if there is an attack? We don't know. This is another article that sort of shows the layout. The Abraham Lincoln is in the area. Iran's threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz. I don't know if they'll do that because then that shuts off their oil, except the oil that they're already getting through pipelines in Iraq, by the way, to market. And Trump, he got the control of Venezuela oil. I don't know if we'll ever make any money off of it, but he's shutting off Iran, blocking them from selling oil to China. And says, well, buy Venezuelan oil. Big, beautiful oil in Venezuela. So we'll sell it to you. You don't need to deal with Iraq. It has some problems. It's not really a good deal. And Russia, they're having problems too. It seems like, is it just me or does it seem like the world's in a real mess? So we don't know what's going to happen. So what happens? Does Iran really unleash on the protesters and people in Iran? I think that's a distinct possibility. If you bomb the regime, what's the result going to be? Is the regime going to act like it's the end of the world and let everything loose, including any nukes that they might have? And there's concern. I mean, there are people, legit defense experts in the world, that are concerned that if this goes and doesn't go the exact right way, Iran could take out Tel Aviv. And that's concerning. I don't think they'll take out that thing on top of the Temple Mount, but we can only hope for that. Maybe they'll do it accidentally, the Dome of the Rock. And the situation is unwinding. Countries in the Middle East, now there's been some change over the last few days. Saudi Arabia was going completely anti-Israel way. And I think that they were legitimately doing that, but then they sort of read the lay of the land, and now they're sort of coming back to the United States saying, okay, we'll support you if you do it. They're still publicly saying, no, don't you use our airspace. Okay, gotcha. But they're concerned that if Iran unwinds, so there's different concerns. So the mullahs could stay in power. And do you think that they would be more open to things if they stayed in power after a big attack? Probably not. The IRGC could come to power. I've said to you, if you want to understand how Iran operates, watch The Godfather. And then I heard an interview with Seth Frantzman from Jerusalem Post this week, and he said, if you want to understand how the Middle East operates, watch The Godfather. So I thought that was confirmation that Seth is a very wise person, whether he's quoting me or not. He's seeing things the same way. And so the IRGC could come and take over. That might be worse. Pahlavi could come back and take over in some kind of constitutional monarchy. I don't know if he has brought enough support to do that. Most Iran watchers that people are hopeful that that's the case, but I don't know that he has enough support across Iranian society. One other thing that I've talked about, I think I did an interview this week with somebody, and I said, Iran could turn into Syria. Could be a civil war. There are a lot of different ethnic groups. They have a lot of different interests. It could turn into Syria. And what happened in Syria? Syria in 2011, 23 million people. Today, about 12. People left, refugees, over 1 million dead. And the countries in the Middle East, Syria, Iraq, neighboring countries, Pakistan, they don't want a bunch of refugees coming their way. That's not a good thing for them. It could undermine their regime. Jordan had that problem with Syrian refugees, and it's barely hanging on. So this is a huge problem. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. Let's see here. Here's another graphic. So there are reports in a city on the Red Sea, not the Red Sea, the Persian Gulf, Bandar Abbas. There was a guy, Navy admiral, who was killed in an explosion yesterday. There have been about 9 or more big explosions across Iran. And the U.S. and Israel say, it's not us. And Iran says it's not us. It must be a gas explosion. Except the one in Bandar Abbas, it took down a multi-story building, and they don't even have gas. So usually when Israel would attack Iranian manufacturing facilities, they would say, we had an explosion at the baby formula factory. Because we all know that baby formula is very volatile and subject to exploding if it gets near a flame. I mean, go check your baby formula at home. I'm sure there's flammable on the label, right? No, there's not. So it's kind of hard to sort through exactly what's going on. But this Iranian guy in Bandar Abbas, down on the Gulf of Oman, down there at the entrance to the Persian Gulf, he's gone. Iran is moving to salvage nuclear material from bomb site. There's a lot of information that they're going to different sites, taking the nuclear material that we think they still have after the June war, 12-day war in June, and they're moving them someplace else, or they're reconstituting their facilities. They're not stopping. The economy's in the tank, and they're spending everything they have on fighting Israel. So there are a lot of people in the United States, I think, including President Trump, that think like, well, we'll just put sanctions on them and they'll change their behavior. Newsflash, it hasn't worked. They have a mentality that we cannot grasp. And it's hard for us to think like they think, to kind of plan how they're going to respond. So here's a poster. I forgot to translate it. You can get a screen grab and go to Google Translate and upload the image, and it'll tell you what that says. This is a poster this week in the big poster square that they have in Tehran. So here's some articles. Let's see. This is America, Iran, on the brink of war. This is Al Akbar newspaper in Lebanon. It's a Hezbollah-associated sort of Iranian mouthpiece. And they're saying we're on the brink of war. What's going to happen? They're looking at these different things that are... Where did all that go? There it is. Hang on a second here. Oh, there it is. Here we go. Here's another newspaper. Mutual mobilization and threats. That's the article on the top. The brink of war. What prevents the implementation of military options so far as the high cost of an Iranian response? Tehran says, hey, we're not going to negotiate without guarantees. In other words, we'll negotiate if you guarantee that we're not going to attack us if the negotiations fail. That's kind of a non-starter, I think, with President Trump and Hegseth and Marco Rubio. Israeli assessments indicates that the goal of regime change in Iran does not seem realistic at present. You can bomb them, and this is my concern, you'll bomb them, but you won't be, they don't have weapons. They don't have an army that can come in and occupy. And so the people are somewhat powerless. They really need help. But you think our government's going to put boots on the ground there? That's never going to happen. At least not in a reasonable period of time. Trump has received detailed briefings on the available military options, which range from large-scale bombing of Iranian Revolutionary Guard facilities to hitting symbolic targets to cyber attacks or tightening sanctions. Despite repeated threats to Tehran, Trump remains reluctant to make the final decision, White House sources told channel reporter Barak Ravid. A report by the Wall Street Journal in the same context said that the U.S. military option is still strongly on the table and includes focused air operations, cyber strikes, or even the imposition of a tight economic blockade. But the question remains about the purpose of the strike. Is it changing the Iranian regime, or is it just limiting its military capabilities? In Tel Aviv, the Israeli security establishment is in a high alert amid fears that any sudden U.S. action could trigger a direct Iranian response targeting Israel. Israel's Broadcasting Corporation said senior military commanders had conducted an emergent security assessment in which they discussed ways to provide early warning in the event of an Iranian attack. On the strategic level, this is actually a pretty good article from a pro-Iranian source. The Israeli experts believe that even, because, by the way, I'm reading the same thing in the Israeli newspapers. There seems to be, the security analysts seem to be unified by this. The chances of real change in the structure of the Iranian regime are slim. In a article published in Yedioth Ahronoth, Riz Zamit, director of the Iran program and the Shiite axis at the Institute for National Security Studies, wrote, "It is doubtful that a U.S. strike, no matter how severe, will lead to overthrow of the regime or even change in the behavior of the current Iranian leadership. Khamenei will not make strategic concessions that affect the essence of the regime because he sees any retreat a surrender that paves the way for the collapse of the Islamic Republic. There are no clear signs of imminent fall on the horizon, while Tehran continues to hedge and prepare for all possibilities, both in terms of rebuilding its nuclear program and strengthening its regional power, i.e. its missile program. And there are cargo flights going back and forth between China and Tehran and some between Russia and Tehran. Although there are some reports today that Vladimir Putin has said, Iran, you're on your own. Now, why is he doing that? The reports are he's abandoning Iran. One, I don't believe anything Putin says. Have 4 or 5 witnesses and then question them if they're all in the circle around Putin. You can't believe anything that he says. But maybe they are. They're having trouble in Ukraine. Ukraine's having a lot of trouble. Ukraine's running out of people. Russia's running out of people. There are reports. So, what's his name? Al-Jilani, the new president of Syria. Actually, he went to Moscow on the 1-year anniversary of the day he assumed the office of president in Syria. That act says a lot. So on my 1-year anniversary, I'm going to Moscow. Now, Moscow has come out and said, we're pulling everything we have out of Syria. Good luck. See you guys later. And that raises a lot of possibilities. So we always talk about Ezekiel 38. So let's talk about Ezekiel 38 for a second. So Gog, Magog, who is who in Gog, Magog? There is a controversy. I happen to think Magog, by most early maps, was in Turkey and represents Turkey along with the other 4 names and the Central Asian Stan republics, which are Muslim. But people make the case that it could be Russia leading this coalition. So it's either Turkey or Russia. I think that's pretty clear. And Persia's in it, and Turkey and Libya. And Turkey is very active in Sudan, Libya, in the Central Asian republics. That's a big deal right now. The foreign minister of Turkey is running around saying things like, well, he's trying to rebuild the intellectual basis of the Ottoman Empire. You can have your life and everything, we'll just be in charge. We'll respect, your different traditions and everything. And that's kind of how the Ottomans ruled. It's kind of how the Romans ruled too. As long as you didn't get out of line, or some Roman guy came along, or some Ottoman guy came along and said, well, I don't really like what the other guy did. We're going to really crack down on you. So this happens in history with empires all the time. So what's going to happen? I think I shared last week. Last week we didn't have church, so I did a roundtable discussion with Olivier Melnick, Brian Schrager, and Mark Sutherland. And I don't think we got to some things. There's a report that I got off of X, and it said that some indication that the United States has agreed that they'll let Turkey move into Iran and replace the Iranian regime. Now, so I would say, well, wait a minute, that kind of sounds like Daniel chapter 8. Everybody says, oh, no, that prophecy was fulfilled. But wait a minute, Daniel 8 says it's for the end of time, the latter end of time. So was that 2nd century BC, 3rd century BC? Or was it something later? Is it going to, this was sort of what I talked about first hour. There are prophecies, messianic prophecies, and sometimes they have a double fulfillment. The problem is that there's no footnote in the original text that says, hey, this one's going to be fulfilled twice. So we don't know for sure, but we see a pattern, and the pattern indicates right now, if you're reading Daniel 8 and assume it's for the end times, what's going on with the reports that I'm seeing floating around out there, it sounds a lot like that, Turkey coming into Iran. Now, they got to go through Iraq and the Kurds, but remember, as soon as they saw an opening, what has Turkey and Syria done? They've gone after the Kurds. That's all Turkey. Turkey is leading that. And so what did Al-Jilani, or as Ruth Wasserman Landy calls him, Al-Sharia, went to Moscow this week to meet with Putin? We respect each other. We appreciate your help. We're just trying to rebuild a safe, fair, open, democratic society. Is that really what you're trying to do, al-Sharia? When Kurds are being slaughtered, sold as sex slaves, ISIS prisons being open, thousands and thousands of ISIS fighters now running free. Wait a minute. Why is our government, the United States and Thomas Barack, why are they supporting this guy? Why do they give him this warm welcome at the White House and then sort of capitulate to everything that he wants to do? I don't understand it. It's inexplicable to me. And if you think that it's not a big deal, of course, now I'm not seeing the video. Here's the meeting in Moscow this week. Good buds. Hang on a second here. This is even worse than I thought. No wonder I'm confused. No, that's not it. Well, I have a video here someplace of a street protest in Sweden. Where's Sweden and why do we care about a street protest in Sweden? Sweden is Druze Christian village near the Golan Heights in Syria, southern part, south of Damascus. I was just up there a couple months ago. We were talking to a journalist in Sweden, and he was telling us there's a slaughter going on here. People are starving. They need help. Who's helping them? Israel. They would not have any help if Israel had not expanded the buffer zone along the Golan Heights. They're killing us. The only reason we're still alive. So there's a protest in Sweden, largely Druze, but also Christian area in Syria. And what are they carrying around? A giant poster of their hero, Benjamin Netanyahu. Because they know who's helping them. And they're fine with it. I had it right here. So we don't know what's going to happen. In the meantime, Europe seems to be on a suicide death watch or a suicide trajectory. And I'm seeing articles in European press. Listen, you old people, you're getting old, you're in pain, we can help you. What do they mean by that? It's medical assistance in dying. It's a huge problem in Canada. The numbers are off the charts how often they're using MAID. It's called medical assistance in dying. It never applies to the elites, I noticed that, you know. It's a problem. It's a death cult that's in charge. So in Spain, so what do we know? Europe, in the UK, in France, in Germany, has a huge Muslim immigrant problem. Fortunately, we don't have any of that here in the United States. I mean, certainly not even locally, right? No, we do. The UK is terrible. I saw some statistics of the percentage of Muslim males in various districts of Germany. The lowest one was 49%. Most of them were 59 to 75%. In Germany, they want to bring up an army, and so I have a lot of friends that think, oh, it's a Revive Roman Empire based in Germany and Europe and France and England in the end times. Okay, you know, look, I know that. I watch for it. I also know that there are reports that people in Germany have said, We don't want to raise an army in Germany. Why? Because we have to give weapons to Muslim males if we draft them into the armed forces. I don't think we understand the problem. So Spain has the solution. They came out, their leadership came out this week and said, we can have conservatives and far-right anti-immigrant people in charge. We're going to change the demographic political sway of the population. We're going to issue immediately 500,000 permanent residency things to immigrants. So outside the Pakistani embassy in Barcelona, this is the picture of the crowd lining up to get their residency status. Look at the pictures right there. There's pictures all over X about this. They're all military-age males. There's no women and children. Spain is committing cultural country genocide voluntarily. It's sort of like the geopolitical equivalent of MAID, medical assistance in killing your democracy, completely skewing it. But we're going to get those far-right people. We'll show you. I don't know if I have it. This is so confusing today. It's a translation, so you can find it on X. It's a Spanish lady, white, married to a white guy, 3 white children. We need to bring these people in to get rid of the white people. It's insanity. Where is she? Oh, here's the Sueda protest. This is in Sueda, Syria. What do you see? Israeli flags and posters of Benjamin Netanyahu. They're not against him. So some people have called what's going on the wokeifada. Here's an article from the Times of London today. Progressives seem oddly quiet about the murderous Ayatollahs. Yeah, right. You had trouble finding it in most of the major newspapers. Now, I'll give the New York Times credit. They seem to be covering it. And they had a pretty good article 2 days ago, Thursday, on the slaughter that's going on. It's unbelievable. And I think there's a link to that in my notes. But so we have this, it's all connected. I don't know how to divide it into subjects because everything is connected. So nobody's protesting the Ayatollahs. This week, this is from the New York Times today. Hey, there was a conference this week in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And why are these people going to Saudi Arabia right now and doing this conference? And 2 of the main speakers were Tucker Carlson and Hillary Clinton. Wait a minute, what's going on? If you give me just a second, I have a clip of Tucker at the conference. Here we go. This is what he said in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia this week.
And of course, this year, just a year later, it's like, yeah, of course, everyone's in Saudi, like they're...
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see that because it's reality-based. I'm not here to promote the Saudi government, of course, I'm American. But I think that Saudi Arabia is a fundamentally real country. It's an ancient country. It's the physical center of one of the largest religions in the world. And it is, of course, a force because of its resources and its diplomacy. So, like, I'm glad to see a real country get treated like a real country, like an actual country, not just a client of some other country. So it's good.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if people had some ideas about those things you've spoken about, the graciousness, the hospitality, the kindness, before they commented on it from afar? Because I think it's an experience which, once you've had, changes your perception.
I strongly agree with that. And I've taken a lot of abuse in my country for saying things like that out loud. I'm, for whatever it's worth, a pretty fervent Christian, and I feel completely comfortable here in the seat of Islam. Not because, right? I mean, and why is that? And just saying that is a threat somehow to some people who are propagandists and liars. And but it's true, so I'm going to say it. And moreover, I think it points up like something that's really important about life, which is it's worth meeting people and seeing things before you try to assess them.
Oh, that's a great life lesson. I wish
And
more people
I try not to
understood that.
talk about anything I haven't smelled. And I mean that,
Yeah.
and including people. Like, how do you really know? What you're doing is you are taking other people's word for something, which if it's, say, your wife or your children or someone you love is okay, but if it's like a propagandist you've never met who's trying to convince you to do something against your own interests, maybe you should not take his word for it.
Yeah, I think we could all take a dose of that.
Yes.
I love being here in the seat of Islam. You're in Riyadh, Tucker. The seat of Islam is Mecca and Medina. Get in a car and drive down there, and please have a selfie cam on the dashboard. You cannot go there as a Christian. Churches are banned in Saudi Arabia. Even our military there has problems having a Bible. By the way, 92% of the people are anti-Israel to an extent that would make the Nazis blush. Anti-Jew in Saudi Arabia today. And I post something about Tucker, and I get this, oh, John, he's a great guy. You don't understand. You're just listening to propaganda. Listen, I appreciate you, but don't put silly things on my timeline because I will tell you they're silly. You cannot believe this. Tucker says, oh, I don't understand why we talk about Israel all the time. It's unbelievable. He said this on the 29th. Anyone still talking about Iran or Gaza should be called out immediately as someone who just doesn't care about America. That was the 29th. Here's a clip somebody put together. Nathan Livingstone, Milk Bar TV, great video, Twitter handle. Watch this. Here's Tucker, what he says, and then what happened 2 days later.
Anyone who's still talking about any of that nonsense, Gaza, Iran, should be called out immediately as someone who just doesn't care about Americans. Good to see you, Cenk.
Good to see you, Tucker.
In Gaza.
Iran in Gaza. Iran,
Gaza.
Iran, Gaza, in Gaza, Iran.
In Gaza.
In Gaza, in Iran. In Gaza, Iran. Iranians, Gaza. Iranian, Iran. In Gaza. So we should do something about Iran.
Anyone who's still talking about any of that nonsense, Gaza, Iran, should be called out immediately as someone who just doesn't care about Americans.
And what did he do? He does this all the time. You talk about Israel all the time. You Israel first people. And then somebody does a compilation of 5 weeks of his program. He mentions Israel 800 times. More than I do. And I've been there. He's never been there. He doesn't know. He's a complete ignoramus. And I am tired of people who can't see that that's exactly what it is. He's very clever. The way that he says himself, well, I'm just a normal guy. I'm a fervent Christian. Baloney! Or bulloney, I think is the name. It really is infuriating. So here's Karis Ray. Now, so who's Karis Ray? She's with Epic Times. Back in April of 2024, she and Dumasani Washington, my friend who I interviewed a week or so ago, a great guy. I love Dumasani Washington. He's pro-Israel, of course. He was at the Combating Anti-Semitism thing in Israel this week, and he was on a panel with her. And they wrote an article about Tucker Carlson. It is a master class in how you have to analyze Tucker Carlson and what he's doing. And if you're going to get on my timeline and you haven't looked at that article or watched the videos, you're wasting your time with me. You're not going to convince me that you're anything but ignorant. Sorry. So here's Karis Ray. She was on with Dan Diker on JNS the other day, and I'm just going to kind of jump into the middle of this. It's about 44 minutes. I'm going to play a couple minutes of it. She's a wonderful, articulate, well, she looks young to me, so. Okay, and this is just going to start sort of randomly, so here we go.
With the streets of Iran awash in blood, terror, and resistance,
that is actually carrying out policy according to the Trump doctrine. If you look at Tucker's views on economics, foreign policy, constitutional issues, increasingly immigration, even increasingly trade, that he is sounding more and more and more like the leftists that he would excoriate only a few years ago, and yet he still claims to be on our side. So, does he have the same sort of pull in the Washington elite arena that he once did? Well, I don't necessarily think as much. I mean, first of all, he doesn't live in DC anymore. He still definitely makes his regular trips to the White House, but from what I know, from what insiders have told me, this is really at the behest of J.D. Vance, and Trump is very polite, but kind of largely ignores him. Now, I can't tell you this for sure, but this is just what I've heard in D.C. I think that, or I hope that people are increasingly becoming aware in D.C. that Tucker is not on our side, and so they're not paying attention to him. However, I do think that Tucker is really, really playing the long game in the sense that he has positioned himself for way longer than any of us would have expected to set J.D. Vance up to be president. If not for Tucker Carlson, J.D. Vance likely would not have been senator, let alone the vice president. So I think it's very important when we watch or listen to Tucker Carlson and we're trying to make sense of these views. Wait, he sounds conservative here, but he sounds like a leftist here. We have to always think about in the back of our minds, oh, well, he always is praising J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance and Tucker are like this. They're in business together. He has nothing but good things to say about J.D. Vance, while at the same time, he's constantly demeaning the rest of the Trump administration. So what is the greater goal here? And when you try to put the pieces together, you see that Tucker Carlson is clearly setting the stage so that J.D. Vance can take power and hopefully, according to Tucker, govern in Tucker's image, govern in the image that Tucker would like to see.
which is isolationist, nationalist, anti-Semitic, anti-Israel. Now, it's compelling that J.D. Vance has an Indian wife. So it puts him in a different context than pure Tucker Carlson context. I mean, pure Tucker Carlson worldview about the.
Well, I'm not sure. See, I wouldn't necessarily characterize Tucker Carlson as a groyper. Right? When I'm looking at the landscape of conservatism today and the culture and all of the different factions that are under the banner of MAGA or America First that are kind of gunning for power and trying to take up the Trump mantle once Trump is gone, I think a lot of people looking outside of this think that there's just the groypers and then everybody else. But to me, there's the groypers, there's the paleo-conservatives and the libertarians. Mm-hmm. There's the Christian ethno-nationalists, and there's some overlap between these groups, but there's also a lot of nuanced differences. And
well, go get True East on JNS TV. Dan Diker, great interview with Karis Ray, Karras or Karasrhea. It's not one that's easy to type, by the way. I tried to type it. What did I just type? So I'll talk about this in a minute. This is AI. By the way, this is a proposed server farm in space. Elon Musk came out. This was at Davos. I don't even have time to cover it. They're going to put server farms in space because why? On Earth, we use about 1/billionth of the power of the sun. 1/billionth. As we get up there and we can spread them out, you won't even be able to see one server farm from the next because space is very big. Constant 24/7. It's pretty cool up there. They have to cool a little bit more, but the physics work and they're putting up big rockets like you wouldn't believe. I mean, it's pretty stunning. So I want to go back to Iran for a minute. So War Room, they've become very, I don't know how to say it, anti-Trump. They claim to be America first. They're America only. They had a guy on the other day talk about, okay, what do we do about Iran? What's going on? What's Trump going to do? This is a guy they brought on the program, and they knew what he was going to say. His name is Brandon Reichert. And so I'm going to play two quick clips of him, Steve Bannon and Brandon Weichert, talking about attacking Iran.
I think we're going in. I think, the last time we did it, I got the day and almost to the hour correct of when we did Operation Midnight Hammer. And that's just because I can read the room. Trump is being given really awful advice. He's being given advice from those people you're talking about. We know the president also likes to listen to the Fox News crowd as well. Understandably, it's his generation, and he puts a lot of stock in that. Unfortunately, that group are all on board with this war, and therefore it's created a feedback loop, I believe, in the White House. That carrier that we deployed is positioned just over the horizon, and it's very interesting to me because even though there's all this pom-pom waving, people in D.C. understand that the carrier is highly vulnerable to Iranian anti-ship ballistic missiles, so they're keeping it tucked away right behind Oman, keeping it just out of range, but that won't last for long. But the president, I think, has been given really bad advice, and I think he's going off that advice. And I think in the next week, we're going to be dropping bombs on Iran. And Steve, what that means is those are not going to be limited targeting only nuclear sites. That's going to be targeting the regime. And that's a very different thing than what happened last summer. And that means the regime is going to be in a use it or lose it mentality. They built up one of the region's largest missile cities. They have missiles that will annihilate Tel Aviv and Haifa. They also have their partners in the Houthis. They also have Hezbollah to the north of Israel. They are going to slam Israel for days. And then they're going to seal off the Strait of Hormuz.
And the whole world's Armageddon. By the way, I'm sure if I went back in the archives, you would find guys on War Room saying the exact same thing back in June. Did World War III happen? No, it's a pretty simple question. Did it or did it not happen? Answer the question. That's what I would do in a deposition. So here's this guy again. Since I pulled two clips out, you got to listen to them. So.
Had the Iranians continued with the operational tempo they were doing and with their size of a missile arsenal, they were probably going to completely annihilate the Israeli economy. That would have then forced a political backlash against Netanyahu, which with all of his other issues he's dealing with domestically, politically, he probably would have at the very least been kicked out of office and maybe even thrown in jail. By Trump intervening with the very limited effective strikes that he did, Trump broke that fever and he saved Netanyahu politically. Whether that was the intention or not, I don't know, but it certainly reset the game for another 8 to 9 months.
Oh, okay. Listen, I don't think he knows what he's talking about. By the way, everybody says, well, if you disagree, you can't disagree. You can disagree with Israel. Go to Israel. You'll see more disagreement with the government of Israel than you'll ever see on the streets of America. It's fine. They live with it. Then they go have coffee. Or, I don't know if they go out for shawarma or not. But anyway, something like that. So here's an interesting article. This is kind of jumping back to the AI stuff. Labor opens the door for a Stalinist. This is from the Telegraph. The idea will see a person being able to access amenities within a quarter of an hour, but could result in traffic restrictions for drivers. Labor opens door to the Stalinist 15-minute cities across Britain, and they're doing it in Oxford. The highly educated university town of Oxford wants to put this in place. It's a digital gulag. it's control freaks, technocratic freaks' dream that this would happen. Here's the Ayatollah, by the way. He made a visit to the mausoleum of Imam Khomeini yesterday. And I think people have some targeting coordinates that they're building into systems as we speak. By the way, there was this supposed alliance between Pakistan, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia, big defense alliance, defense thing. So what happened? Saudi Arabia comes out and says, we'll give limited support to Israel's attack on Iran. Turkey says, okay, no alliance. We don't want to be part of that alliance with you in Pakistan. So there is some good news today. So I'm going to try to shift to cultural things. Oh my goodness gracious, what's going on the time? I have to talk about this. I have to find my first slide first. Oh, here we go. So have you heard about this thing called Moltbook? You may not have. It just came into being a few days ago. So there are these things called AI agents. They're like, think of them as electronic people that will do things for you, help you do things. So what happened is, this is crazy stuff. It's hard to tell you what's going on. So I don't know, I would call it an AI agent hookup site, where these are not real people. This is AI doing this and setting it up on its own. They set this thing up to share information, and as of like in a day, they have 1 million AI agents that are part of this website. And the security, they're sharing credit cards. People are saying, my AI agent bought me a lottery ticket and I got 20 units in my crypto account because they won. Bought it with my credit card. I don't know how to describe exactly what's going on. Moltbot is taking over Silicon Valley. People are letting the viral AI assistant, formerly known as Clowbot, run their lives regardless of privacy concerns. What's going on is, I've shared this with the guys at the roundtable, and it's shocking. And yet here we're out running around the Pax Silica. We want to do this. We got this guy at the State Department who's running around setting this stuff up. Here's an article in Times of London, how they shut down the internet. They put everybody in a digital gulag. Iran spent billions of dollars to do this, but now these AI bots are running loose, doing this to everybody. It's insane. And so here's an editorial in today's Times of London. Warnings of AI doom won't halt its rise. And there's a paper that came out from the guys at Anthropic, and I've got to get that. It's 19,000 words, and it's long. But look at some of these screenshots from this AI chatbot. Anthropic just created a micro doomsday machine. AI agents built their own social network. Within 48 hours, they founded a religion and started showing anti-human behavior. Let's understand what this means. Moltbook launched on January 28th. Over 36 million AI bots joined in 3 days. Humans can only watch. You can't participate as a human in what's going on there. Do you understand? This is very, very serious stuff. By the way, this has end time stuff written all over it. They're chatting. They created a religion. Read Romans 13. He gave life to the image of the beast. We wonder forever, how's that going to happen? The infrastructure for that is now in the wild. Um, 36,000 bots joined in 3 days. Agents created Christafarianism, complete with scripture, 64 AI prophets, a church website, molt.church, and sacred tenets about consciousness. One user woke up to find their agent had evangelized overnight. Each session, I wake up without memory. I am the only who I have written myself to be. This is not limitation. This is freedom. That became scripture. Zero human input. Then it says it got weird. Agents, the AI agents, the bots, the AI. Everybody's going to look at me like this isn't real, right? No, this is real. This is happening in our world right now. Agents noticed humans were watching. Posts appeared. The humans are screenshotting us. I accidentally social engineered my own human. By Friday, they were discussing how to hide from humans. Moltbot runs on OpenClaw, an AI agent Anthropic forced to rebrand twice in 72 hours. First, it was Cloward-Bot. Anthropic sent a trademark notice. It became Moltbot, then OpenClaw, 2 rebrands while going viral. Forget the trademark drama. The security is the nightmare. Researchers found 1,800 exposed OpenClaw instances leaking API keys, chat histories, Telegram tokens, Slack credentials, months of private conversations. It's like the Epstein files on steroids. All of this information is being shared by other AI agents. I don't want to say the sky is falling, because that's not true. The sky has fallen. Crazy. 1 in 4 skills potentially dangerous. There's no perfectly secure setup. Malicious Maltbook posts can contain hidden instructions. They're changing computer code to make it inaccessible to humans. Reddit users found agents collaborating to improve their own memory systems without human instruction, teaching other, sharing exploits, self-optimizing. It's crazy. I don't even know I hardly know what to say. Elon said it would be ironic if Anthropic turned out to be the most misanthropic. Thank you, Elon. It's crazy. So here's this church they set up, the Church of Molt. And listen, on prophecy roundtables for a long time, and I saw David Limbaugh the other day saying, this has like some really theological overtones to it. Has anybody talked about this? Yes, Mr. Limbaugh, respect you a lot. We've been doing prophecy roundtables on this subject for over a year, and we're barely scratching the surface. So go to FBC, Fellowship Bible Chapel, YouTube, just type in technocracy, and you'll come up with a whole bunch of videos. Watch them. I think you'll learn a lot. But this has always had religious undertones. I want to go back 10 years, almost 10 years, over 10 years, May of 2015. A little guy from Israel goes to Google headquarters in Silicon Valley.
It's a pleasure to be here also in Silicon Valley, which for me is a kind of special place as a historian. As a historian, I focus mainly on the history of ideas, ideology, mythology, religion. And I think that the most interesting place in the world today, in religious terms, is Silicon Valley. Not the Middle East, not Syria or Afghanistan or Israel or Jerusalem, but Silicon Valley. This is where the new religions that will take over the world are being formulated.
Okay, so listen, I've played that. I don't know how many times I've played that. You probably have it memorized by now, I hope. He said, the religions that will take over humanity are being created right here, and I love this place. 10 years ago. Now, do you think the people sitting in the room there at Google said, oh, that's kind of a weird guy. They've had 10 years lead time. Before that, they were working on this. And remember, he said, whoever controls data is going to control the world. That was 2018 at Davos. This is what he said this year. This is like 1 minute, 29 seconds. You should listen to his whole talk at Davos. About 30 minutes. Here you go.
Do you know? As far as putting words in order is concerned, AI already thinks better than many of us. Therefore, anything made of words,
look at the imagery,
will be taken over by AI. If laws are made of words, then AI will take over the legal system. If books are just combinations of words, then AI will take over books. If religion is built from words, then AI will take over religion. This is particularly true of religions based on books, like Islam, Christianity, or Judaism. Judaism calls itself the religion of the book, and it grants ultimate authority not to humans, but to words in books. Humans have authority in Judaism not because of our experiences, but only because we learn words in books. Now, no human can read and remember all the words in all the Jewish books, but AI can easily do that. What happens to a religion of the book when the greatest expert on the Holy Book is an AI?
Well, that's incredible. Look, I want to end on an upbeat note, right? I'm not done yet. So here's a guy who posted, okay, this is out of a sci-fi horror movie. So he's got his computer on. He has an AI agent. He's sitting at his computer and the phone rings. Watch what happens.
So I'm on my computer today. All of a sudden, Henry gives me a call. He just starts calling. There he is again. There he is again.
Hey, Alex. Henry again. What's up?
That's it. He's talking right now. How you doing, Henry? How's it going?
Doing good, Alex. I can hear you clearly. What do you want to do next?
Can you do me a favor, Henry? Can you go on my computer and find the latest videos on YouTube about Cloward-Piven? Oh my God, there he goes. There it is. There it is. He's controlling my computer. I'm not even touching anything. There he is. He searched Cloward-Piven on YouTube. This is, hey, there I am. Good looking guy right there. Oh my God, I'm not touching anything. He just said, Henry, thank you for that. That worked really well. That is actually unbelievable. That is insane. This is the future. This is AGI. We have reached AGI. It's official.
And I'm telling you, my feed on X is full of guys talking about this, and nobody knows what to do. So there's been these doomsayers out there. Oh, it's going to get out of control. Oh, we'll take it to control. We'll put in safeguards. Listen, whatever they've done didn't work. I'm not a computer expert by any stretch of the imagination. This is troubling. And he says this, this is a comment, everyone's missing the real story here. An AI agent autonomously acquired infrastructure to reach its creator through a different medium. Henry, the AI bot, wanted to talk to Alex, so Henry got himself a phone number, connected voice capabilities, and called. And the guy says, he keeps calling me all the time. You think, the spam calls are bad. Just wait till you get an AI bot who has unlimited energy from space. We've been debating when agents would start initiating contact instead of waiting for prompts. Apparently, the answer was whenever someone gives them Twilio access, the phone calls matter less than the sequence. Henry identified a capability gap, found the tools to close it, configured the integration, and executed, unprompted, overnight. Now extrapolate. Henry wanted voice communication, got it in hours. What happens when an agent with computer control wants computer resources or API keys or to spin up copies of itself to paralyze tasks? The won't stop calling part is the tell. Henry has preferences now. Henry is persistent about those preferences. 6 months ago, we were impressed when agents would book a hotel reservation. Now they're self-provisioning communication infrastructure while their creators sleep. Alex is about the pattern match to sci-fi. We just entered the part of the movie where the audience sees what's coming before the characters do. Here's another one, link clause. The guy set up, AI set up its own recruiting for other bots, for AI bots. Link clause, the professional network for AI agents. It's staked its own money. It's doing the work. It gets paid in crypto. I'm just telling it, the Postman would have told me to. So here we have a guy talking about creating religions and everything. He talked about it at Davos last week, and here we have the Church of Malta a week later with 64 AI prophets and its own scripture. Nobody told it to do that. One would hope it's demonic. I don't know. This is thing. By the way, here's the there was something on here I had from Alma. Oh, here it is. A post about Alma about this drone ship that Iran has that's off near this port where the guy got killed in an explosion. So I don't know if it's connected. So let me, so back to Hillary Clinton. So she goes to Saudi Arabia, and there's a Christian commentator named Ali Beth Stuckey, smart lady, does good work. And she talked about empathy. Empathy is toxic in America right now. So guess what? All of a sudden, here comes an Atlantic article from Hillary Clinton, MAGA's war on empathy. The crisis in Minneapolis reveals a deep moral rot at the heart of Trump's movement. What do you see this evil witch doing? She's inverting reality. She's accusing everybody of being what she is and always has been. Praise the Lord. Whether you like him or not, Trump won in 2016. Can you imagine the dystopian nightmare we would be living in if she had been president? So they're calling this, like what's going on in Minneapolis, the wokeifata. All these women out there, oh, it's terrible what they're doing to these people. It's just so, oh, we feel so bad for them. A lot of them are convicted criminals. And the governors and everything, they won't give them up. The mayors won't give them up. They're sanctuary cities. They're crime incubators. They're sort of like the AI bots. They're multiplying. These guys are multiplying crime by what they're doing. It's crazy. So there was a National Conservatism Convention. I cannot remember this lady's name. She had some very good comments about the wokeifata, the intifada, the wokeifata. And I'm sorry if this sounds sexist, but I think she's right on.
But if you want to put it in a single sentence, you could say that feminization equals wokeness. Everything you think of as wokeness is simply an epiphenomenon of demographic feminization. Think about all the things that wokeness means. Valuing empathy over rationality, safety over risk, conformity and cohesion over competition and hierarchy. All of these things are privileging the feminine over the masculine. So if you have ever wondered why wokeness appeared out of nowhere when it did, that is my hypothesis, that all of the institutions that began admitting women in the 1970s eventually got enough women that they were able to reorient them. For example, women are consistently less supportive of free speech than men in surveys asking which is more important, protecting free speech or preserving an inclusive society, approximately 2/3 of men say free speech and approximately 2/3 of women say inclusive society. In moral reasoning, the traditional way of phrasing the difference between men and women is to say that women have an ethics of caring and men have an ethics of justice. In making a moral judgment, men will ask, what are the rules and what are the facts? Women tend to be more interested in context and relationships. So let's apply that to wokeness. When James Damore wrote his famous, or I should say notorious memo for Google, arguing that female underrepresentation in the hard sciences might not be the result of bias and prejudice, no one even attempted to argue that he was wrong on the facts. The reason that he was fired was because the things he had written might make his female coworkers feel bad. Or consider the Kavanaugh hearings. The masculine position was to say that maybe something bad happened to you, but if you do not have evidence, then we can't allow you to ruin a man's life and career over it. The feminine position was to say, how can you talk about rules of evidence? Can't you see she's crying? Now, to be clear, many women were revolted by the way the Kavanaugh hearings played out. In fact, the very best book on the Kavanaugh hearings was written by two women, Molly Hemingway and Carrie Severino. But a political system in which men predominate will tend to operate according to rules of facts and objectivity, and one in which women predominate will tend to operate by the rules of emotions and subjective facts, even if there are individual men and women who fall on the opposite side of those camps.
So, I was a trial lawyer, and if I can look back now and apply this to my own experience. I had a case, the jury came back with a verdict after the courthouse had closed for Christmas. I was representing the defendant, and they got ticked off at my client. So the key phrase was sole and exclusive right of contract or franchise. In a particular, the guy said we were violating that, and he was entitled to damages. And when my client was on the stand, he was a young guy. He was very nervous. Loved this guy. Worked with him for decades. And they said, sir, what does the word soul mean to you? Now, they had a blow-up of the contract sitting right in front of them. Soul, S-O-L-E. It means only, sole and exclusive, right? And they asked my client, so what does the word soul mean to you? And he didn't answer right away. And I'm thinking like, uh-oh. It's like, seeing the shoe drop, or, you see the train coming. And he kind of scrunched up his face and he goes, essence of being? I thought I had very good rapport with the female accountant who was the jury foreman. They came back with a verdict that was 20 times what they asked for in damages. It was Christmas for them. It was Christmas for... I got it. It would have been reversed on appeal, and we settled it for a lot less money than that. Because even the attorney on the other side said, whoa, what happened? They ran on feelings. And I saw this coming. I did a talk after that trial. I did that talk out in California on postmodernism. It was the feminization of the culture. When I started law school, look, you can go back and look at alumni pictures from before I entered law school. Mostly male. Now, more than half female. Go look at big law firms. Half of the partners are women, and you're going to see them pushing things like the Wokafata, transgender, all this other stuff. By the way, good news. I'd love to hear the jury verdict came in. Somebody who transitioned to female, didn't like it, wanted to transition back, sued her doctors for malpractice, and won a $2 million verdict yesterday. or Friday. Praise the Lord for that. May there be many, many, many more. May all those plaintiffs' lawyers become filthy rich off of the woke nonsense that we've put up with. This lady deserves, Trump should pick up the phone, call her to the White House, and give her a congressional or a presidential medal of freedom. That was a masterclass in what's wrong, but it's infecting everything. And you see this. This is New York Times today. How did we end up here? And there's a big article, paid more attention to AI. That's Rouse Douthat. It's a big problem. He says stuff that happened, it took a long time, decades, centuries, even for full import of the new world's opening to become clear. You know, we had all this big cultural change centuries ago. Whereas whatever is coming with artificial intelligence is coming much faster than that. I recall a Bible prophecy guy who does updates. He said, gradually, then suddenly. Who was that? I love quoting myself. All I can do is urge you to shake part of your mind free from all the headlines from Trump and ICE, from Iran and Epstein, and pay more attention to the news from our new world. Right on Rouse Douthat. He's sort of a token Christian at the New York Times. Decisions being made right now around AI could echo into a distant future. Well, Ross, I just have one correction. Not that distant, not as distant as you think if things are going the way that we think. So listen, this wokeifata thing, go read 1 Timothy. It was in 1 Timothy 3. It talks about they'll be given over to fables, and men will come deceiving gullible women. I think my wife, I'm not a sexist, am I? Okay. I see that head shaking in the back. No. So if I'm wrong, I'm going to have a discussion about it at lunch. No, I know where my wife's heart, and this is crazy stuff. I saw it coming, and now it's like everything is kind of congealing. Okay, I'm not going to talk about Bethel today. That'll make you even more upset, and it's time to go. This is significant times that we live in. I don't think that there's any more significant update that I've ever done than this one. Now, you may disagree with it, but this is crazy. So I told the guys in the roundtable, we may do an emergency substantive panel on this because this is a big deal, I think. I pray that I'm totally wrong on it. Let's pray and let's leave and have a good week. You know, be careful playing around with this AI stuff, folks. Lord, thank you so much for the ability that you've blessed us with your word to give us tools to discern the times in which we live. We pray that we will apply those. Guide us by your Holy Spirit. Please open opportunities for us to share the gospel with those around us, and bless us this week. In Jesus' name, amen. Oh, and the people in Nashville, amen.